Imagine for me, if you will, you're a new officer on the police force. You're patrolling an area that you're not super familiar with at a time of night that's typically known for higher crime rates. As you approach a vehicle that you just made on a traffic stop, the driver starts to frantically reach down into the center console. After being told multiple times to show his hands and stop doing what he's doing, to which he has not complied, you find it necessary to ask him one last time. During this time, he turns around, looks at you, sticks something out the window that looks like a weapon, and you fire 3 shots into the cab. Now, if only there was a way as an officer to be able to prove that you were not maliciously trying to kill somebody that night, but rather acting in self-defense. And on the flip side, if evidence does show that you were acting out of self-defense in a malicious, excessive use of force nature, that there might be a way for the public to prove that. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that we do have that ability in the form of police body-worn cameras. It is imperative that we arm our officers in the community not only with the knowledge and the skills that their community needs, but also with the proof that they're doing the job that we're asking them to do. And if they're not, that we have the ability to retrain that. Police body-worn cameras are essential in our community for a number of reasons. According to a 2016 study by the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Statistics, 47% of major police agencies have acquired these body-worn cameras. Of that 47%, roughly 8,000 police agencies, 86% of them already have active body-worn camera policies, most of which require identification of recording in progress to the suspects. Now, there have been many studies conducted, but I think the number one thing that most people would argue is one of our society's biggest struggles is the excessive use of force of police. In many cases, there's no way to prove one way or the other. We simply rely on witness statements. Well, in this instance and many others, where you're the police officer and you have a body-worn camera, there is a way to provide that evidence. In most criminal investigations, we rely on video evidence wherever applicable. In this case, it could save lives and save reputations. A study conducted by the Rialto Police Department in conjunction with 2 doctors found that in instances of excessive use of force, the rate of force was half as likely to occur in video body-worn camera officers than in those that did not wear body cameras. This was a survey conducted over 12 months, and they found that they also reduced the rate of complaint from civilians from 24 in the previous 12 months down to only 3. That's staggering evidence in support that these body-worn cameras work. To flip that into perspective, out of the 1,000 contacts that they reference this against, the rate of criminal complaint from a civilian was 0.7, and after body cams dropped to 0.07. The other issue that we face as a society is the ability to provide that evidence. 75% of police departments provided video evidence to the public within 2 hours of being requested. That's evidence that can quickly be admitted to trial, can quickly be admitted to courts, and can quickly be admitted to the public to make sure that we're getting the full picture. Another study conducted in 2014 at Arizona State University basically said the same thing as the Rialto study, that officers were less likely to use excessive force, that criminal complaints went down, and that overall the community was much more in support of these body-worn cameras. Another study conducted in Las Vegas with the Metropolitan Police Department, over 400 officers showed the same thing. Excessive use of force dropped drastically, and that the criminal complaints from the civilians dropped. And in fact, in both of those studies, they found that criminal civilian complaints that did occur actually resulted in favor of the police department and the officer. Now, one of the biggest complaints against or arguments against body-worn cameras is their upfront costs. Understandable. The video costs money to store, to dispose. The hardware costs, mounting these to the uniform, getting the cameras themselves. And then, of course, you have to maintain them. They have to work. But the simple fact of the matter is the money that departments would save because of litigation costs that they don't have to pay to citizens that were not wrongfully detained or wrongfully prosecuted for crimes would save them millions of dollars across the United States, which then could be placed towards a budget, an annual city budget, to be able to afford these cameras. 75% of departments that did not acquire these cameras listed costs as a huge obstacle for them to overcome. And this is a way that we can actually overcome that obstacle. Now, in our society recently, we've had numerous protests, riots, civil disobedience. We've had a number of complaints of police injustice, people being killed at the hands of police. Think of what would have happened had we had video evidence of many of these crimes. The prosecution would be much easier. The jury is able to understand video much easier than they are a police report. According to the two doctors and the police chief in Rialto, they state that if the legitimacy benefits associated with wearing cameras, both economically, socially, and culturally, exceed the quote-unquote costs of the cameras, we sense that body-worn videos will become increasingly popular amongst officers. And let's face it, if we have to spend some money to save some lives, isn't it worth it?